Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Allison, I want to start today's episode with a story. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I have a story. So I was in a store recently, and there were these two siblings, and we're waiting in line in the store. You know, kids have a hard time waiting in line. I have a hard time waiting in line.
It's hard for me.
Right? It's really hard for them. So, of course, they started to push each other and argue and smack each other. And the mother turns, I assume is the mother, turns to the two children and says, "Say you're sorry. Say you're sorry." So one child looks at the other and says, "I'm sorry," and then continues to go ahead and bash the other kid.
Yeah, because in that case, saying sorry meant okay, and I can continue doing what I'm doing. It had no meaning.
It really had no meaning at all.
No meaning.
I mean, I think that just the two words by themselves, "I'm sorry," it's not meaningful.
It's not enough.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not meaningful to children. But I'm watching this episode. So the kid then continues to go ahead and shoves again, shoves it because now they're entertaining themselves this way. Shoves again, and the person I assume is the parent, turns to the children and said, "I told you to say you're sorry and stop." And I thought, well, that obviously wasn't meaningful at all. And we should probably do an episode about meaningful apologies.
Yeah. Well, I have this whole thing about forcing a kid to apologize anyway. I never force them to do that, even if they know what the words mean, because they might not actually feel sorry, and we did a whole episode about emotions and how they feel. And I think forcing them to say, "I'm sorry," when they're really not sorry makes it invalid. Like, it makes it like, well, that doesn't mean anything to them. I mean, basically you made them say sorry to erase the behavior that they did before that and move on. And when you really could be teaching, how can you make this person feel better? What do you and that's what I do in my class. Like, what do you want to do to make that person that you hurt feel better? And some kids say, "I would like to say I'm sorry." Okay, you go ahead and say sorry. That's okay. But other kids don't even know what that means yet. We're talking, they're really young in my class, so they don't know what that means. So
yeah, tell the people how old they are in your class again, in case they weren't listening to the prior episode, which, by the way, they should. But
they
go
should.
Ahead. Yeah.
They're 2 and 3 years old. So I get them when they're 2, and they turn 3 while they're in my class. And so they're really little, and they have no idea what sorry means. They don't know what that means yet.
Well, they assign it. When children don't know what something means, they assign it meaning. So I think what happens with young children is they assign it this meaning. If I say I'm sorry, the adults are going to let me go, so it means I can do it again and just say I'm sorry. Or I'm sorry means it never happened. Or I'm sorry erases whatever thing I did so I can do whatever I want as long as I say I'm sorry.
Yes. It's like erase, move on.
Right.
And that's not the way it should be. I mean, when a child in my class, hits another child, I bring them to me and we discuss why that happened, and maybe he was frustrated, whatever it is. And then I talk about, how can you now make that person feel better? Mm-hmm. You hit them. That may have hurt them.
That
what
hurts
can you
their
do to
skin.
Yeah.
That hurts their skin.
What can you do to make this person feel better? And in some will say I'm sorry, and some will say, I want to, in my class, this has become the thing, I want to get them an ice pack. So I said, okay, go to the refrigerator and go get the person an ice pack and give that to them. And it's kind of cute that is how they figured it out. And it does make the person who got hurt feel better sometimes, like, even if they're not that injured, they're just like, oh, wow, this person now is doing something nice for me after they just did something not so nice to me. So it kind of, like, that's their little way of apologizing.
But don't you think it kind of works that way as an adult too? If someone hurts my feelings as an adult, someone comes and hurts my feelings, and then they come to me and say, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure I believe that.
That's true.
Right?
I don't.
I'm not quite sure they're not going to hurt me again.
Right.
I don't, I kind of don't know what to do with that. And it's their behavior in the future that teaches me what to do with our relationship.
Yes. Like
So,
actions speak louder than words kind of
right,
thing.
right.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
I'm also not saying don't teach your children the words I'm sorry, because it's a convention of our society.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think that the way that we should teach them the words I'm sorry is by having them see us apologize, not by forcing
Yeah.
them to apologize meaninglessly, which is entirely different. I think that they should see me apologizing.
I apologize to the kids in my class a lot. Like if I I mean, my body is big compared to theirs. So sometimes I accidentally run into them or whatever it is.
Yeah,
And I always
yeah,
say,
it
I'm
happens.
sorry. I did that on accident. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
Right.
I at least model it, or if I forgot something, I'm forgetful. So sometimes I'll tell them the day before, like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to bring in something. And then I forget because, the morning is crazy no matter where you are. And I'll come in and be like, I'm sorry. I forgot, so and then they at least see how the words I'm sorry should be used.
Right.
It's like I genuinely feel sorry because I bumped into you. It was an accident, but I still feel sorry, or I'm sorry I did forget that, or whatever it is. Like, and then they kind of see like, oh, that's how you say it. It shouldn't be a forced thing.
Hmm.
My teacher's aide didn't say, now, Miss Allison, you should say you're sorry.
No.
Like that doesn't, so they kind of see like, wow, nobody's forcing her to say it. She really means that, so,
Yeah, they need to see it in use, I
yeah,
think. And they
yeah,
need to see it in real use. And then I can't just look at them and say, I'm sorry. I have to do more talking than that. I have
yeah,
to say, like, I'm sorry. I forgot to bring in what I promised. I'll
yeah.
try and remember to bring it tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Or
Like I always,
I'm sorry. I didn't see you standing there. I didn't mean to bump into you. Are you
yeah,
okay?
yeah. Well, the one thing in my class that I've always taught the kids is this thing called full sentence manners, because I always had an issue with children saying, I want that, please. It's like, how about you say, may I have that, please? Or just saying, please, to me was never enough. So I always had this full sentence manner. And I
Hmm.
always have, when I say a full sentence apology, I'm sorry for whatever it is I did, not just like, I'm sorry and I walk away. It's
Right.
like a full sentence. You can't just say, I'm sorry and then go off and play. But I think that's what a lot of parents are kind of doing now. Like,
Yeah,
say you're
because it's
sorry.
fast. It's fast. Just
Yeah.
say you're sorry and then we can go back to the playground. But
Yeah.
children don't actually know what it means to be apologetic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, it just, they translate that as, if I just say these two words that don't really mean anything to me, then I can go about my life.
Yeah. And they really don't understand that until they're like way older than you think. I mean, it's like 7 or 8 years old. I think they
Right.
start to understand what that means. And here we are forcing children who are 2, 3, and 4 to have that feeling and that emotion when they have no idea, to say they have no empathy at that point. I mean, they don't know, but I think parents think that their children should know what that means,
I
when
think
really
that
they
we
don't
also,
understand that yet.
yeah, they don't understand. And I think that
Yeah,
sometimes we take things we understand and assume the children understand it, but that's not true.
that's not true either.
No,
Yeah,
that's not true. So then I think we should tell the people how to facilitate what's actually meaningful apology. So one
yeah,
way is the way that you do in your class, I think, is to say to them, how can we make him feel better?
yeah.
Right? It's a
And it
meaningful
worked.
way.
Yeah, and it works because now I have a class pretty much that's running almost on its own in that aspect, because now sometimes they just go and do it on their own. They're like, oh, I hit him, I got him an ice pack, and I gave him a hug, and it's all done. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't even have time to walk over.
Yeah.
Like they just do it. And the problem is resolved before I even got there. But they're doing it on their own, which is the important thing. So, I mean, once you teach them how to do it, they just kind of do it. You know,
Yeah. Once you teach them something meaningful, and
Meaningful.
they'll
Yeah,
kind of do it because it makes sense to them.
yeah, yeah.
So we can do that. I think, a lot of adults will want to use the words I'm sorry, and I don't want to forbid it. But then you need to
No,
do, like we were saying about full sentences. You have your children say something like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taken the block. Next time I'll ask you for it.
right.
So
Think
that it
you
at least is a little meaningful.
Yeah, I think you really do need to talk about what are we going to do next. Like those children in the supermarket saying I'm sorry, and then the boy turns around and still hits, because, say I'm sorry for hitting you next time. And, what are we going to do next time?
Or
Because
as
then
the
that
adult,
kind of,
right? As the parent, this person could have looked at them and said, the hitting isn't allowed.
yeah,
What can we do while we wait in line? Is there something we can
yeah,
do?
yeah. I
Right?
understand you might be bored right
Yeah,
now, but,
I get that you're
like,
bored. I'm
yeah,
bored.
yeah,
Sometimes it's
I,
good for them to relate to our emotions. I'm bored too. What can
yeah,
we do?
yeah,
And try and come up with something. When I was a
something.
parent of young children, I always had a bag of tricks. I always had
Yeah,
something in my bag they could do
yeah,
when I knew I was going to be in a situation where they needed to wait for any reason. But I think that we have to remember that when we just look at children, especially in the interest of time, and say to them, go say you're sorry, that it's meaningless, they haven't learned anything, and actually they probably don't feel that.
yeah.
And certainly don't have something happen on a Friday if your children are in school, and then bring them back in on Monday to say they're sorry to the child that they hit
Okay.
or kicked,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
3 days later they
Does
don't
that?
even understand
They
anymore
don't
why
even
people
know.
are upset with them.
Yeah, if it doesn't happen immediately, then you may as well just move on, because these are children that I can't even remember what happened on Friday.
It's
These
true.
children
What did I even
definitely
have for
don't remember.
breakfast today? Yeah.
I don't remember. So these children, they don't remember that far away either. So I feel like it has to be pretty quick after the situation took place, full sentences. What are we going to do next time? How could we solve this for next time? And yeah, 3 days later, like, here's a handwritten note. I've had that happen. Johnny wrote a little note to you
Oh,
saying that he's
oh,
sorry.
oh
I'm
my
like,
goodness.
no,
No,
he
he
didn't.
probably wasn't sorry. Probably not sorry at
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So please don't do that either. Because
It's
you
really
force it.
okay. We're
Yeah,
fine without it. Those of
yeah,
us who
yeah.
work with children,
Yeah,
we're
most of the
good.
time I don't remember. Most of the time I really don't remember, unless it was like something really like, oh my gosh, I don't remember. I mean, I had a dad just this week actually email me at night, and say, hey, I was talking to my son before going to bed, and he says he's really sorry for how he wouldn't clean today. Now, I don't really remember that because, in this grand scheme of things, him not cleaning that one time was not needing an apology necessarily. We talked about it. He said, okay, next time I will clean, but to me, it was like, your child probably didn't say that while he was going to bed.
Yeah. No.
So
I
I'm glad
feel like that was adult prompted.
that was an adult prompted thing.
Yeah.
And not necessary. I mean, by the time I get home at night, I didn't remember that he didn't clean, that one time, out of the 5 times that we cleaned that day, so yeah, I mean, it's just funny. That's how adults think, though.
Yes. Yeah.
It's important to
We think,
them.
yeah, we want the children to think like us, but they actually don't.
Yeah, yeah, they
So,
don't.
right. We need to make these situations something that they can learn from. How about that? That's
Yeah,
meaningful.
exactly.
Something they
That's
can learn
meaningful.
from.
Yeah,
Keep listening to our podcast so that you can learn other ways to approach children's behavior and find really great settings for them and things to do with them. Please subscribe to the podcast. And if you do, then you know how to reach us.
Yes.
And if you don't, you should listen to another episode to find out. Let's not even tell them. What do you think?
Let's not tell them. Yeah,
Okay,
let's not tell them.
let's not tell them every time, because then they don't even
Yeah.
have to listen to another episode. So we're going to sign off now and get ready to record yet another episode, and maybe we'll tell you then how to reach us, so you'll have to listen to a future one.
Yeah.
Ooh. We're not sorry about that, by the way. Bye.
Bye.